Hello everyone and welcome back. Thanks for joining me today for another update on my Polestar journey. First of all, apologies for not putting out any videos in the last week or two. To be honest, there's not much happening with the full lockdown here in the UK. There's not much driving going on. There's not many updates happening in the car. So as there was no new items to talk about, I didn't make any videos. But here we are again. This week we're going to review the January consumption numbers and take a look at how you can help with collecting more numbers. So let's take a look at the numbers for January. So I've redesigned the look of this data. It's an evolving process, so it will change quite a few times until we settle on a format that is useful. If we take a look at January's numbers, you can see that I did a couple of trips, not many, and the average consumption for January was 38.65 kilowatt hours per 100 miles, or the equivalent is 24.02 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. Whenever you look at these slides, the blue highlighted one will always be in miles, and the orange highlighted one will be in kilometers. Down the bottom you can see the graph over months. So if we look at the blue line, this is the calculated range. So I take the numbers and then work out a miles per kilowatt hour, and then based on a 75 kilowatt battery usable, we come out with the estimated range. Now I've seen so many different numbers for how much battery is usable, ranging from 70 all the way up to 76. I'm not sure what the exact number is, but all of these numbers are calculated using 75 as the usable battery, which gives 3 in reserve for Polestar to keep as a backup. So as you can see along the top, so we've got the blue numbers, total of 1,732 miles so far, average speed 40 miles per hour, with the average across all the months at 35.6 kilowatt hours per 100, and that works out to an average of 2.83 miles per kilowatt hour with an average range of 213. Now you can see the blue line on the graph at the bottom. You can definitely see in the colder months how the range is affected by the weather. So January, February are way low, down as low as 184 for February. And then it jumps to September because that's the first month that I had the car. And there's no data between February and September, so it doesn't appear there. But you can see the first month I had it, the average was working out at 241. Then 228, then 229, and then down to 205 in December. So yeah, it's interesting. The more data we collect, the more we are able to analyze these numbers and see what makes the difference. In total so far, the bottom right hand side shows that I've got 25 trips that I've logged so far. So if we look at the next slide, this is basically the numbers broken down by different variables. So one is temperature, one is driving conditions, and one is whether I used preheating or not. So if we look at the temperature on the top left, I've grouped these now into 4 groups so far, basically in 5-degree Celsius bands. So 0 to 5, 6 to 10, 11 to 15, and 16 to 20. And you can see across those, as you go up the temperature ranges, so the average kilowatt hours per 100 miles or per 100 kilometers reduces. So taking a look at the 16 to 20 range, there I've done 190 miles, and that looks has an average of 30.5 kilowatt hours per 100 miles, whereas the first one in the 0 to 5 range I've done 291 miles with an average of 38.2. The graph underneath that just shows the average kilowatt hours per 100 miles or per 100 kilometers. The miles is the blue line and kilometers is the orange line. If we look in the top right hand side, I mentioned in the last video that I put down whether the driving conditions were dry, mixed or wet. I used to have a scale of 1 to 5. I've reduced this to a scale of 1 to 3. So quite a simple thing. Was it a dry trip, a mixed trip or a wet trip? And there you can see again, dry trips, when the weather's dry, the average is coming in at 33.3 based on 782 miles so far. And when you look at the wet, on the other extreme, 369 miles and an average of 36.4. I see the mixed one has more miles than the wet, but the consumption is also more at 37.9. It's possible that some of those mixed trips were much shorter journeys where we know the consumption is much greater than it would normally be. The table underneath that on the right shows whether I used preheating before that trip or not. And seeing as I've had the car since September, the first few months I'd never used preheating. Since then I only use it when it's sort of below 5 degrees. So, and you can see the average there so far between yes and no is relatively similar, 35.2 for no preheating and 36.8 for preheating, but that could be temperature related that we're getting those numbers. So as I said in the previous numbers, all of this data so far is coming out from 25 trips that I've recorded along the way. But I've been doing some work on how we can collect more data and how you can get involved in helping us collect this data. So if you have a look at this website I've created, PolestarDriver.com, if you visit that site, you can actually help us by submitting trips that you've done. That data will get logged into the database, and in future we will add all of the information together from everyone who submitted data and then get a much better picture of different countries, different driving styles. When we put it all together and analyze it, see what comes out in the end. So this is the website, PolestarDriver.com. Go there, visit, it's relatively easy. You find the page, you click on the button to submit your trip. You will see a screen like this on the left hand side. So on the screen there are only 5 of the fields that are required to be filled in. That is the date, the unit of measure, so are you telling us the numbers in miles or in kilometers, the distance covered for that trip, the average speed, and the consumption recorded by the car. Every other field on here is optional, but obviously the more fields you fill in, the better the data collected will be, and it will give us better analysis in the end. So let's take a look at the fields. So the first one there says name alias. You don't need to fill in any name or alias, but if you do, I'm hoping at a later date I might be able to add some functionality where you can log on and select your name and then view your own numbers separately to the combined numbers of everyone. So if you want to put in a name or alias, do that. It doesn't have to be your name. You can put any name or your handle from some other forum or anywhere. It's a free text field. You can type whatever you want. If you want to track your numbers later, then just make sure that the name alias you use is the same for each submission. On the right hand side there, I've put country and it defaults to United Kingdom, but you can change that using the drop down. I thought it might be interesting to compare these numbers from different countries. So if you want to fill that in, then please do select your country from the list. The date of your trip, so that's just so that we can get the numbers into the correct month on the analysis. Unit of measure, so are you sending us the numbers in miles or kilometers? Then we have distance covered, so it's just a number, 10. It doesn't matter, as long you can't submit the form if you haven't selected miles or kilometers. So whatever you put there will be 10 miles or 10 kilometers, right? Average speed, the same thing. Just put the number that's shown on your dashboard. Consumption as well. So what I normally do is at the end of a trip, I take a photo of the consumption numbers from the car, and then I can just go and fill them in here and copy them straight off. If you're doing multiple trips in a day, just remember to reset the numbers. Otherwise, you could collect the numbers for multiple trips at the same time. The next one to the right hand side is recharge during trip. So this is related to the battery information, which is on the next line. So the next line says battery start percent and battery end percent. And hopefully from collecting these numbers, we will start to be able to collect or calculate how much a percent of battery means in terms of miles or kilometers. So if you fill in the start and end percent of your battery, please fill in whether you recharged on this trip, yes or no. If you did recharge on the trip, then there will be a different calculation to if there was no recharge. Then underneath that we've got temperature, which is in Celsius. So if any American friends want to enter any data in here, please convert it to Celsius for me, and then just type in the number there. On the right hand side we have road conditions, so was the road dry, mixed or wet? Then underneath that we have a selection for one pedal driving. So do you use, for this trip that you're recording, did you have one pedal driving on? It's called standard, low or off. The last selection on there is preheating. So for this specific trip that you're recording, did you use preheating or not? Okay, once you have filled in all the information you want to give us, then you simply click on the submit your trip button, and that data will be safely saved in the database and used in the next calculations. On the right hand side here, I've just done a screen dump of the data that does come into the database, just to show you how it's recorded. So it will automatically record the date and time you submit the data. If you filled in a name, then it will show it there. Country, date, all of the fields are shown as that's the information that we can see in the database and will be used in future calculations. So are you ready to help with this data collection exercise? I really hope so. Let's see how many entries we can get into the database and what the resulting figures look like. It will be interesting to see and then monitor this over the next coming months. Thanks very much for watching. Please take your time to press the like button if you enjoy these videos, and subscribe below if you want to be notified of future videos that are released, and click on the notification bell so that you know when the videos are released. I hope to see you again soon.